Do you like mac and cheese? Do you like cheesesteak? Well, I have the perfect combination of the two right here for a quick weeknight meal, and it's only 7 bites a serving, and it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether they're mine or someone else's. Okay, today's recipe is one of mine. It's for mac and cheese steak. If you like macaroni and cheese and you like a cheesesteak, putting them together is going to be heaven. So let me show you what the ingredients are that we are going to use for this. We have 1 small onion that's been sliced thinly, 1/2 of a red pepper cut thinly, just like the onion, and 1/2 of a green pepper, also sliced thinly. Here we have a 1/2 cup of sliced mushrooms, and I've broken them into slightly smaller pieces than just the slice so that they spread out more. And this is fully optional because some people aren't fond of mushrooms. Yes, I'm looking at you, Bree, from Balancing Life with Bree. And I know the onions won't go into anything that Lynn, my friend Lynn, and her husband Charlie will be using either. So those are the main vegetables. We have in here, I have my mixture of spices. There is 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and you can adjust that according to your taste. 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and again, you can alter that. And 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. And that's just all combined in here because it's going to go into the pan all at once. We have, this is the secret ingredient for our mac and cheese steak, is Frito's mild cheddar cheese dip. If you can't find this, and sometimes I have difficulty, you can also use the Tostito's Salsa con Queso. You can use the 98% Campbell's 98% fat-free cheddar cheese soup. So you have some options if you can't find that, because sometimes it is difficult to find. But you may have to adjust the bites or points based on what you were using. So just make sure you input everything into the recipe builder as you're using it, because yours may alter slightly from mine. I have some cooking spray and my favorite, this is not sponsored, but my favorite Fiber Gourmet pasta. We're using the light elbows because it is mac and cheese steak. And these are 2 bites for a 2-ounce serving. Now I mentioned in one of my other videos, I think it was maybe the ricotta pasta. If you enter this into the recipe builder as the entire package, it may alter the points or bites because it's reading, like the whole package comes out to 10 bites, because you know that iTrackBites math, where it's probably like a little over 2 bites. And if you had 2 servings, it would become 5 bites. So the whole package, which is 8 ounces, is considered 10 bites. So this, if I put it in to the recipe builder, I would adjust the ounces until it became 8 bites. So that was 2 bites per serving. If you're counting calories or macros, you can input the entire thing just as it is, because that will be a wash. But if you're following bites and you want to maintain that 2-bite serving, then just adjust it slightly in the app. And I also have some salt here for the pasta water, which I am going to put back on. It was boiling, but it was a little too soon. So I'm going to get that boiling, and I'll move this stuff out of the way. And then, oh, I forgot the star of the show here. We have some cheesesteaks. Now, you don't have to use cheesesteak. You could use 96% fat-free hamburger. You could use chicken breast, ground chicken breast. You could use ground chicken. You could also, if you wanted to keep it kind of like the cheesesteak style, but use chicken, you could use chicken breasts and just slice them thinly to approximate the sandwich steaks. Now, to do that, what you should do is put the breasts into the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes and let them firm up. And that way it's much easier to get a thin slice on the chicken. So that is an option. You could also, if you wanted it to still have the flavor of the Philly cheesesteak, you could also add a little bit of the better than bouillon paste, beef bouillon paste, just to give it a beefy flavor. So that's another option, and it won't add any bites to it. So the water is boiling. I'm going to add in a little over a tablespoon. I usually go very generous. They say it should taste like the ocean because this is the only time that your pasta is going to get any salt in it is while it's boiling in here. So it could taste bland if you didn't salt the water, even with the sauce and everything else. So let me move this stuff out of the way and I will show you how to prep the sandwich steaks. Okay, I'm going to add the pasta in. We can add it in now because it's going to be fine if it's done before we're finished here. If I can actually open it. Oh my. I mean, I know I'm weak, but come on. I have never had this kind of trouble with this. Okay. That was not my mussels, that was the package. So I'm going to dump that in. I'm going to set a timer for like 9 minutes because this usually cooks from 6 to 10, they recommend, depending on how you like it. I tend to prefer it towards 10 minutes, but I'll give it like 9 for now. Okay, in the recipe, it tells you to, if you're using sandwich steaks, to cut them in half lengthwise and then into bits across this way. So it's pretty easy to just, you don't need them too thin because they are going to soften up a bit in the cooking. So depending on how thick, you might like maybe 6 to 8 slices across. Okay, so our cheesesteak is all cut up and prepped into just like about that size. Like I said, when you cook it down and some of that moisture comes out, some of the frozen moisture, it's going to curl up and becomes a little smaller than that. So I'm going to put this aside and get started on the sauce. Okay, so you're going to set your pan over medium-high heat and give it a good spray with cooking spray. And we no longer need that. So I'm going to let this heat up and then we will add in the vegetables. Now, like I said, you don't have to use the onions, you don't have to use the peppers. Apparently, if you actually go to Philadelphia, where the Philly cheesesteak obviously came from, they don't use vegetables in it. I don't know where onions and peppers came in, somewhere along the line, but I enjoy it like that. So if you're from Philadelphia, I apologize for adding these other things. And I'm also not using Cheese Whiz, which I guess is the typical for a true Philly cheesesteak. Okay, so getting hot, so I'm just going to add in the vegetables, the onions. And Jennifer, Lynn, you don't have to add the onions if you guys don't want to. And the mushrooms, which Brie, I know you won't be using either. Get those out of the way. Stir this, make sure there's no sticking going on. Now you're going to saute this for about 6 to 8 minutes until everything gets nice and soft. You're not necessarily looking for color. If you get a little color, it'll just add a little flavor as long as that color isn't black. But a little browning would be fine. And the pasta looks like it's just about done. Let me double check. Yep. So I'm going to drain this and let this saute for a little bit, and I'll be right back. Now just so you know, I did cut these peppers into thin strips, but then cut those in half because they were a little too long. So don't be afraid to say they're only like half the size of a pepper. So don't be afraid of cutting them down. You don't need like a giant slice of pepper in each bite. One thing I didn't mention is if you didn't want to slice the peppers, if you wanted to use frozen peppers or frozen onions and peppers, the onions, red pepper and green pepper each come out to about a cup each. So if you had one of those frozen bags of the sliced onions and peppers, you would use about 3 cups. You could use less, but I like trying to fill up my meals with 0-bite foods when I can, so I decided to make sure that there was plenty of vegetables. And the mushroom is on the recipe as a half a cup, so but you could also use like a little can. I would just drain it and add those in here. So you can play around with it. You don't have to, you know, you can simplify things for yourself if you would like. Okay, so this is starting to look good. You can see that it's getting to be a little bit of color on the onions, and the peppers are softening up. So I'm going to push all of this to the side. Push it to the side. And while that's sitting there steaming up a little bit more, I'm going to add the sandwich steaks to the other side. And I'm going to sprinkle everything with the seasoning mixture. And our pasta's already done, so we're really just waiting for this. Then we'll add in the cheese sauce, well, the cheese dip, and dinner will be ready. It's a really quick dinner, and like I said, you can, instead of using sandwich steaks, which depending on the kind you get, can be kind of high in bites. The ones we got were from a restaurant supply, and it was called Original Philly Cheesesteaks. And they have a website, phillycheesesteak.com. I'll leave a link below just in case anyone wants to see if they happen to be sold individually and not in a restaurant supply. Okay, so because this meat was frozen, it's going to take a little bit to to cook down. But I mean, it does go pretty quickly because they are very thin. Now you could also, just like I said with the chicken, you could also get your own steak and put it in the freezer for 15-20 minutes and let it get firm and thinly slice the steak that way. So there is that option as well. Or you can just make things super easy and just use some hamburger or ground chicken. It's totally up to you. You can adapt it as you need to or as you would like. Okay, so I'm gonna let that sit for a minute and brown up and lose some of that moisture. We don't want too much moisture to water down the cheese sauce. So the beef is pretty well browned. There are a few pieces that are still kind of clumped together, so I'm gonna separate those a bit. And I'm trying to decide if there is too much moisture in here, but maybe a little too much. So let me grab a paper towel and I'll get that out of there. Now typically I would just be daring and go in there with my hands and not protect myself with the tongs, but I don't want anyone emulating me and then getting burned. So I'm going to just sop up some of this excess moisture here. And I guess I didn't think this through to carry it over to the trash. So I will be back in a second to dump in the cheese. That is taken care of. We've gotten rid of a lot of our excess moisture. I don't know why I'm having such difficulties with that word today. So that looks pretty good to me. So we're going to open up our can. This whole can is going to go in here. Now they also have a jalapeno cheddar version, which is the same bites as this one is. But if you've been following me at all, you know that my partner Paul does not like spicy food. So I will add some hot sauce or something if I want to after the fact. I won't add it here because I don't want him to scoff at eating what I've made. Now the sauce is room temperature, so you just need to warm it through. You don't need to really heat it up. And just so you know, this is a 9-ounce can. So if you do happen to switch and need to use the Tostito, Salsa, and Queso or something else, it should be about 9 ounces, so a little over a cup, about a cup. Okay, so stir that in. And once this is all together, I'm gonna add in our macaroni element, our elbows. And just stir that together. Now, is it gonna be as stringy and gooey as mac and cheese? No. Is it gonna be delicious? Yes. And one of the things that I had to learn early on is things are not going to taste the same when you're trying to lose weight and you're changing up the recipe. So rather than compare it to what you're missing out on, just see if you like this. Is it going to be good though? Yes. And that is what you need to do, is focus on the taste. I'm turning this off now. The taste of what you're making now. Do you enjoy it? Then enjoy it. Don't compare it to what you're missing out on, because that's one way to sabotage yourself. That's one way to get into your head and be like, I'm missing out on something and I can't have what I really, really want. You can have it within reason, But this allows you to have something similar that you can enjoy and not feel guilty about or worried about. Now, one serving of this is going to be 7 bites if you're using the Fiber Gourmet pasta. If you want, you can build the recipe in the recipe builder with just the sauce, then track the pasta separately. I think carbonara, which my friend Bree uses, is also a good choice. I've had that and I enjoyed it, but I really prefer the Fiber Gourmet. So, like I was saying, one serving, which is 1/4 of this pan, is going to be 7 bites. If you're following calories, it's going to be 356 calories. And if you're following macros, the fat is going to be 12.8 grams, the carbs are going to be 53.1 grams, and the protein is going to be 32.1 grams. So I hope you will give this recipe a try. It's delicious, and like I said, don't compare it to what you're missing out on, because you're just going to sabotage yourself because you're going to feel deprived. This is nothing to feel deprived about. This is a delicious meal that isn't going to be too damaging to your points or bites or calories. So if you like recipes like this, I hope you'll give this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and hit the notification bell for the next time I upload a video. And comment below if you want to try this, if you have tried it, or what your favorite type of pasta is to use on your weight loss journey. So I hope that you will give this a try, and until next time, bye.